Welcome back to Brazil Crypto Report. Today I'm joined by Jason Lau, Chief Innovation Officer at OKX, and Guilherme Sacamone, General Manager at OKX Brazil. We talk about OKX's launch and go-to-market strategy in Brazil and Argentina, its approach to regulation and compliance, and its new Web3 wallet and Ordinals marketplace. All right, so we are joined today by Jason Lau and Guilherme Sacamone to discuss OKX's expansion into Brazil and Latin America. So OKX has been one of the largest crypto spot and derivatives platforms in the world for many years now. So it's really exciting to see them setting up in this part of the world here. It's also very exciting to have Jason and Guilherme here to tell us a bit more. Jason, Guilherme, great to have you both here.
Thanks for having us.
Very excited to be here, Aaron. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's get started with some quick introductions. Maybe Jason, we can start with you. Maybe just professional background and your current role at OKX.
Yeah, I've been at OKX for about 8 years now, and currently my role is Chief Innovation Officer. I've done quite a bit here at the company in various different roles. So I'm sure we'll dive into that as we dive deeper into the interview. But prior to crypto and OKX, I was in traditional finance. I used to work at Barclays out in Hong Kong, and I was in New York doing municipal bonds. So a bit less boring, if I have to say myself.
And Guilherme, what about you?
Awesome. So currently I'm the general manager of OKX here in Brazil. But just like a long story short, started my career in investment banking as well. Did a little bit of Bank of America Merrill Lynch here in Sao Paulo, and spent a good chunk of my career at Facebook, or I should say Meta. It's always going to be Facebook for me. Both here in Brazil and in New York, where I support a lot of the financial institutions, their strategy to grow in those markets. Then a little bit of business development, both on PicPay here in Brazil and Crypto.com, prior to joining OKX as general manager.
So Jason, maybe we can start with you, and I would love to just get some background on OKX, the company, right? So you've been there for 8 years. I assume it's maybe even been around for a bit longer than that, but it's been kind of one of these. It was originally OKCoin, now it's OKX, but it's just been one of these staples of the industry for several years now. But hoping you give us some background on the exchange.
Yeah, when I joined, I thought I was late to the party, which was kind of hilarious in hindsight. The company was founded in 2013, started out in Asia, and just gradually expanded overseas to be able to serve global audiences today. Today, like you mentioned, we still remain to be a exchange platform, allowing users to buy and sell and store and manage their crypto. Like you said, spot and derivatives, as well as options, earn products, a wide variety of different products for users really to get onboarded into crypto and get access to crypto markets. We also recently, over the past 2 years, have been working very hard on building out our Web3 wallet. So this is almost a separate side to the business where, in this case, users get to store and self-custody their own assets. So this wallet is a multi-chain wallet, supports 80 plus different protocols and networks. And you can basically think of it as a gateway to access all the cool stuff, use cases, and everything that's happening in the wider world of Web3. So the company today, like we mentioned, is expanding. We are expanding to Brazil, but we're also going to be working on our expansion into Latin America via Argentina also. Earlier this month, we announced our license in Dubai in the UAE. We are active in Europe. We are active in Japan, also in Asia, in Hong Kong and Singapore. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I hope we get a chance to unpack some of that later.
And so maybe we can kind of dive into the Latin America expansion and the strategy here, and really kind of curious. Maybe we can go over to you, Guilherme. Really just kind of curious as to like what do you guys have in the works here, and why is this part of the world maybe a priority right now or a focus right now?
Sure, absolutely. As being a global player, I think when we think about our global expansion, we sort of like divide the world into regions and continents, right? And when we look into what's been happening in Latin America, I think by itself is super, super interesting, and that definitely catches the attention of companies such as OKX. And I think the reason for this is because Latin America has been such an interesting lab crypto adoption. If you really think about this, you have different use cases of crypto adoption in different countries, and that by itself is so interesting. So when you think about what's happening in El Salvador, for example, a lot of the government really pushing the adoption of Bitcoin. That by itself is very different to what we see happening in countries such as Venezuela and Argentina, where you see adoption as a way to sort of like get out of the inflationary fiat currencies of these countries. Which that by itself is also very different to the reasons why we see adoption in Brazil, where we fortunately don't have that high of inflation, and we see crypto being used as a way to access international international assets, and also as a speculation overall. So I think that by itself positions Latin America as a very interesting continent to be in by itself. So, but when we think about expanding Latin America, I think it's very hard to, and I think that that's an interesting thing when we think about a lot of global companies expanding to Latin America. Brazil is, in the end of the day, such a large market, and it is the battlefield where you want to get started with, even though it has its own language compared to the other countries in Latin America. And it is a little bit more unique to certain extents. I think Brazil has been really well positioned to be the first country where we want to land our flag, and then later start to expand in other countries in Latin America. So that's what we see now. We just announced our presence in Argentina as well, and we're very closely monitoring other countries in Latin America to make sure that we can expand to those countries as well.
And if I recall correctly, you officially launched here in maybe November of last year in Brazil. Yep. And you've been pretty active. You had a nice little kind of marketing splash rollout. I see you've got your OKX and McLaren shirt on here, so always be selling, right? But it's a nice. It's actually went to a McLaren party recently.
Nice.
So I was very anyway. But anyway, so I was like, oh yeah, McLaren. But you've been taking a pretty interesting approach here. You've kind of like threaded this needle. There's obviously been this tension in Brazil between some of the global exchanges and the local exchanges, and kind of the local exchanges have been kind of complaining that the global guys don't play by the rules, and the global guys are just like, well, we just sort of have better products than you do, and but you guys seem to have kind of trying to kind of thread the needle where you're bringing the best of both worlds essentially. So Guilherme, hoping you could talk a bit about that strategy.
100%, and that's spot on. So when we think about the market in Brazil more specifically, the way we divide the competition, if you will, is in virtually two spectrums, right? On one side, as you mentioned, you have the local players. Those guys are really producing experiences for the Brazilian population that it's very spot on, right? At the end of the day, you have Brazilians building products for Brazilians. So they really know the market, and they really can excel in terms of user experience and processes and features. But on the other hand, they lack a little bit of product portfolio when you compare it to a global exchange, such as the other players that are already here in Brazil. So of course the resource side is also something that is you need to think about this. So when on this side you have the local players, amazing product, lack resources and lack product portfolio. On the other side, you have the global players, right? They have the opposite problem. They have a lot of resources. They have a very significant product portfolio, but they lack the ability to customize and design an experience that is thought for the Brazilian user. And that is exactly where we want to position ourselves, in the middle of these two worlds, sort of like bridging the gap between, having an amazing product portfolio, a lot of resources to make sure that we can develop the market, and at the same time, think about our product and our solutions that is going to be designed to what Brazilians would expect when they're, either getting their first exposure to crypto, or they are a top trader that it's looking for liquidity and good fees. So that's sort of like how we're looking and strategizing our presence in Brazil. And we'll see. We're very hopeful that is going to be the right move for us to take over the market.
Yeah, it's a very interesting positioning in relation to some of the other players that are coming in here, and I know this is kind of like a staple of like Brazilian business school, academia, studies or whatever. But like, there's kind of like this like graveyard of companies that have like foreign gringo companies that have tried to come into Brazil, and we're just going to kind of copy and paste our solution, and from wherever, and we're going to do it in Brazil. And there's kind of this, this sort of graveyard of companies that have like unsuccessfully tried doing that, basically, for lack of understanding of the local market and or whatever, kind of the whole Brazil's not for beginners reason or whatever. But I mean, how does exchange like, or a company like OKX sort of, avoid that fate essentially? Like, what's the key differentiator here?
Yeah, I think, and this is definitely not something easy to do. It's very easy to speak about this, but not easy to operationalize, if you will. But one of the things that OKX does really well worldwide is the fundamental technology the layer of technology that supports our applications and products across the world. The ability that we have to customize and build specific experiences for different countries that we operate in is something that personally I've never seen before. So it's very exciting to have such a powerful, foundation technology under our products and services. So that's something that allows us to move really, really fast. If you think about this, since we started our operation in Brazil prior to the launch, in less than a year, we have fiat ramps. We have just launched this week our pairs for order books for Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT. We have a very selected amount of tokens that is completely regulated for the Brazilian users. So our KYC has been completely revamped to make sure that we're complying with local regulatory requirements. So this is we cannot take for granted the capacity of production when it comes to the quality of the underground technology under our products. So that makes our life much easier. And this is not something that it's trivial for most companies in the world, right? The other thing that I would say is that because technology allows us, we have a very autonomy team to operate in ways that make sense for Brazil. So right here in Brazil, we have a head of compliance, a head of legal, and a head of product. We're currently building the specific roadmap of product that is going to be serving Brazilian users. And it's very likely that this roadmap will not be replicated in other parts of the world. It's going to be exclusive roadmap, specific products that its only goal is to serve better the Brazilian population. So that's how I see us playing on the regulatory side, for example, and not necessarily regulatory, but the way we build the foundation of our brand here is we're the first, I think out of the top 5 exchanges in the world, we're the first one to join Other Crypto. So we're very committed to the market. So, I think everything starts with the technology and then just the way we divide and organize our strategy in terms of penetration of this market, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's a good way of thinking about it, right? If the underlying technological base is kind of popsicle sticks and duct tape and patching holes together, you're gonna have everything else in the stack is gonna be a little more difficult, right? Jason, would love to get your thoughts on this question, and even just kind of coming at from the perspective of OKX, OKCoin at the time started as primarily an Asian focused exchange, and obviously like the Asian market is quite a bit different from North America or Latin America or Europe or anywhere else really. But how do you kind of see that, taking the success you've had in that part of the world and then kind of replicating that and modifying that for into other markets?
Yeah, I mean, to Guy's point about being able to build and push a product that's very unique to the market, this is actually it's not like magic, right? We've actually made quite a lot of mistakes over the years and learned quite a few lessons about how to do that. I think, like you mentioned early on, we were focused on Asian users, and we thought to really just, that's a great product. Why don't we let other users use it? And very quickly we saw that the impact, the engagement was not the same, right? And so we had to pivot quite a bit. And one was actually this rebrand that now you see on Guy's shirt and with McLaren and all that. But it's also making the brand more accessible. I think we previously had somewhat of a stale brand and color scheme and all that. And I think now we've sort of coalesced around something that's a little bit more globally accepted and more accessible. And so again, it's just a lot of lessons learned. I think over time, we as a space, in the crypto space. I mean, 10 years for us and maybe a little bit longer for just a little bit longer for some others. It's not that long of a time, right? I mean, Facebook is what now? How many years old now, right? Exactly. So,
20.
yeah, and that rides on the tails of other internet companies and all that. So, um, it's going to be a continued journey for us. And like you said, having people locally, being able to take user feedback actually is and iterate very quickly on that is core to what we think as our strengths, which is to be accessible, to be listening, and really to be building on the back of some of those responses that we get from the users and other stakeholders themselves.
Kind of focusing more on just kind of the tactics here of you mentioned kind of Brazil as being kind of the battlefield that you're looking to play on right now, that will kind of expand into the rest of the region. And there are a lot of other I mean, I think this is the year where like there's just a lot of other players piling into the Brazilian market right now. You have a lot of the local banks getting into the game. You've got some of the global exchanges getting in. And some of this is, I think, is driven in part by you do have kind of like a chink in the armor of Binance, right? Post this DOJ settlement, and CZ stepping down, and maybe this is a bit of an extreme analogy, but I kind of thinking of it like as like like the Soviet Union breaking up or something, and there's this kind of land grab and multipolar world ship. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's probably a little too extreme. Of Binance is still obviously a thing, right? They're not like disappear, but there is some opportunity there to capture some of that like market share that not just in Brazil, but like globally, right? But Guy, would love to kind of get your thoughts on, I think now, assuming that we're going into a bull market here in 2024, which hopefully we will be, it does seem like there is a pretty good, like there's a void for in the market for like really quality products for maybe not like super like top of funnel retail users in Brazil, because maybe I could just go to Nubank and buy Bitcoin there, but for people that are looking for, okay, I've bought my first taste of Bitcoin, but like what do I do now? Like how do I get more involved in this? And I mean, how do you kind of see like the competitive landscape playing out, and then how do you guys kind of fit in there?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think when we think about an industry overall, I think our take is that whatever took this industry to where it is now, it's going to look very different to what's going to take us to the next round of growth and adoption. So I think it's a much more mature industry to what it has been for the past 10 years, right? And we recently, and just to add to that, we recently ran, and I think when we are airing this, it's going to be very around the corner when we're actually going public with this data. But we were running a survey in Brazil prior to our official launch, and we were really interested in understanding out of the people that had exposure to crypto, what were their take into what's important for the next bull run, right? And one of the things that was really clear was like 92% of the respondents emphasized the need for clear and transparent information about their assets. And that was really interesting to see. Another 86% of them agreed, that proof of reserves would positively contribute to this into the legitimacy of this industry. When we saw these data, we're like, okay, so this is sort of like connects really well to our hypothesis that we had for for the industry as a whole, and we need to double down this for Brazil. So, without talking about competitors specifically, but I think our approach to Brazil is to build a solid solution that is designed for the average Brazilian user, an experience that could be, and this is not trivial, but that's what we're trying to do, an experience that's easy for the early adopters. Should I say top traders, people that are looking for liquidity, more opportunities around fees and depth of the order books. I think we're going to tackle this really well. This is what we know how to do globally. We're going to bring that to Brazil, but at the same time, we want to bring an experience that is very easy to use. And the whole thing is going to be powered by a very transparent platform where users can go on monthly basis into the blockchain and make sure that their assets are backed one-to-one with us. So this is going to be the strategy that we're going to follow here for Brazil as well. It might not be the strategy that will, create a spike of growth over time, but I think over the long term, this will create a sustainable growth that is based on, product resilience, transparency, and security. So I guess, I love the sentence like, um, it works better in Portuguese, but calma que eu tô com pressa. I think we're going to take it slow and clearly, because we're in a rush to grow a sustainable market.
No, it's a good way of putting it. And yeah, it's we're all here for like the long term thesis of this asset class and this technology, right? And I think sometimes the short term sort of we start making kind of bad decisions when we're only focusing on just kind of how do I capture on this like this short term gain or this short term opportunity. So I think it's a good way of thinking about it. And then I mean, Jason, would love to turn to you here and get your thoughts on this as well. And you're focusing a lot on the product and the innovation side, and it's like, okay, we've got, kind of the nuts and bolts of running an exchange, like pretty well down, pretty well figured out. But now it's a question of, and this is what I find really interesting is like you have all the different kind of global exchanges, these global players finding, kind of new ways to differentiate themselves. Like Coinbase, they have their own layer 2 now. So they have another touch point where they can, engage with developers and builders. And so now it's the product isn't just like a place where you can buy and sell Bitcoin. It's like so much more than that. So, I mean, how are you, as you guys are going into these new markets, like how are you, kind of thinking of, I mean, you mentioned earlier the wallet and some other things, but how are you guys thinking of like, how do we differentiate these product offerings, so as to, create a really good experience for both, maybe the top funnel user and maybe more of like the prosumer or the power user?
Yeah, on a global scale, there is absolutely a lot going on, and on things that we're excited about. I think just to touch upon and follow up on what Guy was talking about on the proof of reserves, it's fascinating to think that it took something quite massive like FTX downfall in 2022 to really bring some of these pretty simple blockchain native tools to the market, and for people to actually recognize the value of that. One fun fact is that back in 2014, we actually did our first proof of reserves. This was for OKCoin, but at that time, users really didn't care. I think it was something that people didn't value at that time. And almost 10 years later, now it's like a very integral part of both our value proposition, but also what users are asking. So that maturation of the user understanding of the technology, but also the development of the industry is very interesting to see over the years. And so on that aspect of transparency, trust, and providing tools to users, that's where a lot of our focus is on that innovation side, right? It's making sure users have the right tools to access Web3, also for developers to build on Web3, and we're doing a lot to support both. And so on the wallet side, recently we've been building a lot of features around this relatively new phenomenon around Bitcoin ordinals and inscriptions. That's been very popular over the last 6-7 months, where users are really experimenting with doing things on the Bitcoin ecosystem, Bitcoin blockchain for starters, but also recognizing that these inscriptions are a little different, whether they're NFTs or whether they're tokens, token standards. They're a little different than what they had previously experienced with Ethereum or other chains. And so it's very fascinating to see that level of activity over there. And we're providing tools to do that. We're going to be launching a inscription marketplace that's sort of one-stop shop. You can access all the inscriptions you want on, I think, 20 plus different chains, including a few of the more recent popular ones that are coming to market. So that's something that we're very excited about. Another thing you mentioned, layer 2s. We will be also going to launch our layer 2 later this year also. And it's currently in testnet, and we have just really incredible support from protocols and teams out there. I think someone told me there's 170 different projects that are already slated to be testing or going to be deploying when mainnet hits. And our vision for that is really quite simple. It's a new way, like you said, to engage with developers, to work with them to come up with unique use cases for users, but also the support and the OKX ecosystem that we can tie together, whether that's on a liquidity front, allowing liquidity to be very seamlessly ported over to the layer 2, or whether it's interoperability, making sure things that are built on this layer 2 work very well with our wallet. We're just very, again, very excited for that, and please stay tuned for more to come there.
Oh, very cool. I didn't realize that you guys were doing that. That's in the works. That's very cool. I like the idea of it. At first, when I heard that Coinbase was launching their own layer 2, I was like, well, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But like, I was really impressed with like the amount of momentum that picked up behind it, and it seems like there's definitely a demand for this sort of thing, and it seems like the ecosystem that can coalesce around like, I guess we'll call it like a centralized player, because you are a actual company, right? So but you have the ability to offer potentially more resources and some more development tools and just touch points and things of that nature to help kind of bootstrap an ecosystem around this that might be a little more difficult in more of a decentralized fashion, I suppose. But I find the idea really interesting, and it's an interesting new kind of touch point that I'm excited to see, just how you guys do with that. So it sounds like you've got a pretty good reception so far. On the ordinals front, I mean, I'll confess, I don't really have any like opinions either way about ordinals. I mean, I kind of thought they were stupid when I first heard about them and thought it was like this weird, like, another like Bitcoin civil war type of thing. And that they wouldn't really but not being, but it appears that I've been wrong about that. So it appears that these things have become quite popular and people are using them. And I mean, the debates around these things are kind of funny to watch on Twitter, where it's, the maxis are like, it's like, oh, it's shit coins on Bitcoin, you can't do that. And then people just keep issuing their own meme coins and NFTs and whatever. I mean, Jason, in crypto, like, there's so many of these things that just they come and then they go. They come, they become like everyone's talking about it, and then they just disappear, right? Like friend tech, or things like this, where it's like the big rage, everyone's excited about it, and then like a couple weeks later, it's gone and forgotten about, right? And as you guys are making these product decisions, and you're like, hey, like, what do we focus on next? Or like, I mean, how do you kind of how do you arrive at a decision like, hey, like we're deciding that Bitcoin ordinals is enough of a thing where we need to incorporate a marketplace for this because there's enough demand for it, and we think it's going to be around by the time we actually launch the product, people are still going to be interested in it. Like, how do you kind of go through that decision making process when you're looking to add in new products and features?
Yeah, I mean, I was like you at first. I was a bit skeptical of ordinals, but I think once I think most importantly, saw the smarter people talk about ordinals, and I think that there's obviously always two sides to it. But when you dig down deep, and I think what we saw was that this opened up a new level of design space for Bitcoin, one that did not impact the original protocol, right? There's no change to the Bitcoin protocol to enable this, as well as I think most importantly, the excitement around developers and early users. The team is really focused. I'm talking about the Web3 wallet team, but also broader than that. But specifically in this case, the Web3 wallet team is very plugged into the ecosystem. I think that's part of what makes a layer 2 work, what makes a lot of our products work, is that it's yes, we are a company, we're building products, we're providing value, but we're also part of the community, right? And we're here trying to see what will stick and what will work. And so when we saw that ordinals was really getting traction on those two metrics, the users as well as the developers, and that level of excitement, that's when we thought we should actually try to build something to help users access this. And the key thing that to see was we were witnessing users go through a very, very tough user experience in terms of there was no wallets, for example, that supported ordinals to begin with. And yet there were users that were jumping through crazy hoops just to get access to this. And even today, I'd be the first to admit that the user experience for buying an ordinal, trading, discovering them, it's not as seamless as you would think for other crypto products that you may be familiar with. And yet people are going through all that friction to get access. And that's a sign of some real commitment from users, that they're willing to really go out of their way to get access to these things. And that's where we come in, right? We want to build tools and products to help smooth that out. We've been iterating on our product for the past 6 months, and we think it's constantly getting better. We've been very fortunate that I saw a stat where we have upwards of 80 or 90% of ordinals trading activity is happening via our marketplace. And so we're very happy that users have put that sort of feedback to us that this is the way to go if you want to access ordinals and inscriptions. But yet, I think there's a lot more work to be done, and it all boils down to that user feedback and being plugged into the community and being able to listen to that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point about how like the UX on this was just so bad that if people are actually going through this level of work to like engage with this and trade these things, like there must be something there. 'Cause I remember when I first looked at ordinals, I was like, huh, maybe I should look into. I should try to get involved with this, and was kind of playing around with it. It's like, okay, this looks pretty difficult, and like I frankly just don't care enough to like really spend the time trying to figure this out. But if there's like just a marketplace on OKX where I could just go and trade these things, then okay, like maybe I'd be more interested in there's just less like friction and less like work I have to do to figure out, like download the right things and figure out how it all works and whatever. So that's a really interesting point, right? When it's a good maybe indication of staying power, where it's like if this thing is like that bad, but people are still like going through all these hoops just to figure it, just to access this product, then like there's probably something there, which is super interesting. Maybe Guy, we'll maybe go back to you. I mean, if you have any hot takes on ordinals, I guess now's your chance to voice them. But would also like to just kind of talk about what you guys have on the roadmap for 2024 in Brazil specifically, as far as maybe kind of customer acquisition strategy, like marketing efforts, McLaren partnerships, anything else, football team, football tournament sponsorships or whatever. I mean, it seems like you guys are taking a bit of a, you're not just kind of copying and pasting like the playbook here where it's like, oh, you just go sponsor a football team and get your name on the jersey and whatever, but you're kind of taking a bit more of like a bit of more methodical approach here. So would love to get your thoughts on just that 2024 roadmap here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when we think about our short-term strategy for market expansion in Brazil, um, we have just recently launched a campaign in Brazil. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see, but it's called Trade Like a Pro, where we actually selected a few top traders in the country. Where it's very hard to talk about yourself, right? When you think about marketing strategies, and we wanted to get okay, so there are some traders that are doing really well on our platform. They're teaching others how to trade, and they're really wearing the jersey of OKX out there. So we really, partner with them to let them talk about their experience on OKX and sort of like see if that would resonate well with the users. And it has been. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from this campaign. We of course are going to be running some digital marketing, and partnering with some influencers as well that we understand understand the market. But we want just as our core product, we want to be very transparent about our communication. We want to be very straightforward and communicate in a simple way as possible our features and products and services. We're very unlikely to do anything crazy in the marketing space short term here in Brazil. I think we have very powerful global partnerships that resonate well with Brazil, such as McLaren, Manchester City. I think those are two assets that we have been partnering for a while. Even during the bear market, we have been constantly working with them, because it's not a short term play just for market expansion, but something that resonates well, that connects well with our brand and what we believe in the space. So, long story short, I think our play in Brazil is going to be focusing on the product, developing something that Brazilians can rely on, a product that is responsive, easy to use, and just trying to get our features and solutions out there in the most clear and easy way for people to absorb, without trying to do anything too large and too big that would drive short-term growth over sustainable adoption of the technology.
Can we kind of dive back into the regulatory side here? And would love to just get your thoughts on how you guys are engaging on the regulatory front here in Brazil. We're obviously in the process of the central bank is drafting an infra-legal regulation framework, which we don't know exactly what's going to be in it, but we have sort of an idea what's going to be in it, but it's going to come out later this year. And then the central bank also had like a consultation where they're asking for input from the market. wondering, I can't remember if you guys participated in that or not, or if I saw your name on that, but like, just love your thoughts on like how you're engaging with that at the moment and what your kind of your what your operating strategy is to really kind of and then Jason, if you want to take the question of how are you guys maybe implementing this more globally as well? Because I know you guys got this Dubai virtual assets license, and I'm not sure what else you guys have in the works on that front. But if there's more of a global angle here to how you're approaching the regulatory question, just as that's becoming kind of a bigger theme this year, I think, just across the industry. But maybe Gary, we'll start with you, and then we'll kick over to Jason.
Sure. So I think the overall the way we're seeing this development in the market, I think with the regulatory agencies, I think this is overall very positive. It brings clarity to the market, and we're very excited to see. And we got really excited when we saw that the central bank was the chosen entity to oversee the VASPs in Brazil. So I think these guys have been doing an amazing job for the past few years, and I think this is really exciting. I think it's going to be a very technical approach, and it's going to bring a lot of clarity to the space. We joined AB Crypto, or the Brazilian Crypto Association, and we did collaborate through them on the public consultation from the central bank. We are very excited about this, and I think we're absolutely going to go after the license when it's available. We didn't go after any other license. We're just waiting to see what's going to come out. We are blessed through the grandfather period, since we started really operating a little bit around the first semester of Brazil. We did have a product already in market, even though we didn't do a market launch. So we're just waiting and seeing to see what's going to come out of this new framework that the central bank is going to be building. We're collaborating as much as we can through AB Crypto. That was one of the main reasons why we were so interested in joining the association, to really make sure that we can hear from our peers, people that have been in the market for a longer period of time that we have been, and we could collaborate a lot with our global understanding of products and services. So I think that's the long story short answer to your question.
Great. Jason, you want to take that more from the kind of the global angle?
Yeah, I think from a global perspective, what we've seen over the years, like you have said, I think, and Guy has said, we try to take a long-term approach to many aspects of our business, and working with various stakeholders and regulators is a key part of that. We operate and serve customers and want to serve customers in many different areas and countries. And so, on the ground, we need to be able to engage and coordinate and communicate with regulators. I think our approach has broadly been collaborative, we would like to think, and constructive. We engage proactively. Without naming a specific country, I think back in 2017, I remember we went and visited them. They had nothing on the books about crypto. They didn't even know what to do and what to think. But they said, we don't really like this type of activity here. There's no rules against it, but we don't quite feel comfortable with it. And we respected their decision, right? Like, we actually did not allow users from that country to onboard, even back when there was no rules and laws in place. So I think our history has been very proactive and constructive engagement with regulators. And today you can kind of see that play out. We are, as I mentioned earlier, we are regulated and licensed in the EU. We're working on our Hong Kong application right now. Same with Singapore. We are licensed as a subsidiary in Japan, and hopefully in Brazil too, when some of these new rules get firmed up. But that clarity, that progression that we're seeing globally from regulators around the world, it's just something that we're very, like Guy said, it's something that's very exciting, and I think fundamental to unlocking access, but also helping users understand that this technology and this industry is going to be here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been kind of like a painful, maybe just sort of reckoning period, I guess, for the industry's last couple of years on some of these fronts, and maybe some things that have happened that we're not super proud of, and people have had to make compromises on things that they don't want to make compromises on, perhaps. But it seems like things are trending, hopefully trending in the right direction here on that front. and there's jurisdictions that are realizing that this can be a competitive advantage for them, and it's not in their favor to just sort of kick everything out and tell people they can't operate here. So that's encouraging. So thank you for that color there. Would love to ask, maybe Guy, I'll direct this at you, and maybe if Jason, if you want to take it as well. But just thinking of when you're looking at Brazil as a market, in relation to maybe other markets you're looking at expanding into, like Dubai. I think in Brazil you have this issue where it's like it's a big country in terms of like population and GDP and whatnot, but the average income per capita, disposable income, is not going to be as large as it might be in one of these other countries, right? So you have this situation where, like, okay, like your customer, you may have a lot of customers here, but those customers may not be doing like a lot of volume. They may not be doing a lot of actual trading. It might just be kind of buy Bitcoin and hold it. Where as an exchange, like, you're making money on the fees and whatnot. So it's like if people are just buying and holding, you're not really making any money on that necessarily. And there's also a lot of restrictions on offering derivatives here. And you guys are obviously one of the biggest derivatives platforms in the world. And it's a bit trickier to offer those things here, just because of some regulatory reasons. So just thinking about, how do you balance kind of the mission of like, hey, we want to bring this technology and these products and services to to a new market versus okay, we need to actually make money doing that in the same time. And the value of these customers may not be as great just on a strictly like revenue per customer basis as we might get in other countries. So Guy, we just love to kind of get your thoughts on like how you guys are working through that question, and then Jason, if you want to chime in as well.
Sure. I think just to address the derivatives piece first, I think this is definitely something that we're not bringing to Brazil anytime soon. We, of course, as we have mentioned throughout the whole period of this podcast, we want to make sure that our approach is a long-term approach. We're very excited about a lot of the clarity that we're going to be getting from regulators in Brazil, and we hope that derivatives become something that becomes a product that is possible to offer in the future. But until then, derivatives is not an option for our Brazilian users. You're absolutely right. I think in Brazil there are two plays, and you need to be very clear on your strategy from the beginning. It's either providing an amazing service to the top 8 to 5% of the population when it comes to the top earners of the country, the higher net worth individuals, or a major play for the 200 million Brazilians. And the play here is very different. And we are, at this time, we believe that if we focus on offering an amazing experience for the top 5 to 8% of the population, this will cascade into the long tail users of Brazil, and they will also appreciate this easy to use, very informative and secure and transparent program that we're building in Brazil. But of course, when we think about short term, for the next year or so, how we're going to be playing our cards, we're not going to go into mass communications. We're going to be a very targeted communication towards the top 8 to 5% of the population, to make sure that we build a product. We get their feedback first to make sure that our product fits well what they expect in terms of transparency, compliance, and solutions. And then we hope that will cascade to the other users of Brazil. But I guess that's a very important point, and this is not a trivial point as well. I see a lot of companies making a mistake in trying to have a one-size-fits-all approach, hoping to acquire 200 million of rich Brazilians, which doesn't exist. So we, of course, have to balance it out, our product offerings and communication towards what we believe to be the best approach short term.
Yeah, just to add, also, the institutional market is also an interesting part that we look at globally. Guy, I don't know too much about the Brazilian institutional market, but I have, there's been a lot of progress on that front too, with banks and things like that.
Yep.
And so that's another angle where some of these products are very viable for them. And we have a very robust API stack that institutions plug into. Globally, there's a tool called the Liquid Marketplace, where institutions again can piece together really sophisticated multi-leg trading strategies. And just sort of one click execute them. So we've got some very strong institutional tools also, and for certain markets, that's also a area like an initial go-to-market, also targeting not just the top 5 to 8% of retail users, but also the sophisticated trading institutions too. And then just to pivot slightly onto the Web3 wallet side, I mean, this is a theme that we've talked about, which is we do tend to take a longer term approach to many of the things that we're building, including entering new markets. But for example, our Web3 wallet, we don't charge any fees whatsoever. It's a free tool for users to use to browse and explore the world of Web3. And that's not a revenue tool at the moment, but we think getting more people into crypto, educating them, and giving them this access and empowering to do so, I think that's net positive for the industry, but also certainly will be for us down the road. So again, we'll see when it comes to sort of specific business models and revenues and things like that. I don't think that's actually our primary sort of not that doesn't keep us up at night. It's more like, are we building good products?
Got it. And then just kind of wrap things up here. Would love to get a bit of just color about how you're thinking about maybe the rest of the region. Say, let's assume that, hey, this Brazil activation, this rollout works great. Let's take this to other parts of the region. Like, I know you just launched it in Argentina officially. I guess it'll be, earlier in February. But how are you guys kind of thinking about the rest of the region? And, what do you need to kind of like, how are you going to measure success in Brazil over the course of this year or two? And then, how does that kind of translate into the rest of the region? If Guy, you want to take that one?
Sure. So I guess and I guess your question is more about how this is going to play out in Latin America or Brazil, more of Brazil specifically.
Well, I guess like what would it take? I mean, at what point how are you thinking about the rest of the region beyond just Brazil? Maybe we'll
yeah. Yeah, I guess that goes back to to my point earlier. I think we are closely monitoring adoption and opportunities across other countries in Latin America, but I think we have a very laser focus in expanding our business in Brazil and Argentina for now. And I think, of course, as we get the feedback, as we build an infrastructure that serves well the Brazilian users, and to Jason's point before, the institutions as well, which is something that we're looking very carefully about. We will definitely, probably expand our footprint into other countries. More to come on that. We don't have all the visibility, all the answers yet, but definitely we are monitoring very closely other countries and the opportunity that they lay ahead of this industry.
Great. So to kind of wrap up here, would love to just get some final thoughts from you guys. I'll give you guys the floor. Any like predictions for 2024? Anything you're really excited about? And then lastly, like how can folks maybe get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you're doing, or partner in some capacity? But maybe Guy, will start with you and then over to Jason. But any final thoughts?
Sure. No, yeah. I guess it's just that we're really excited about our product offerings in the country. We're keen to get more feedback. I guess one of the things that I didn't quite make clear is that we're not only thinking about a product that serves well the Brazilian users, but also we're building a very significant infrastructure of customer support. So that feedback that Jason mentioned before is going to be very important. I, of course, am very responsive on LinkedIn. So if you're testing your product and you want to provide any feedback, I'd love to hear, because we are really our plan when it comes to designing the experience for the Brazilian population is very robust. And I hope that we can get that right.
Awesome. Jason?
Yeah, I think this year is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think we've already got a pretty good start to the year with the ETF stuff. Just the energy around crypto, I think, has really shifted over the past 18 months. And I think it's just going to be a great year. We're super excited here because we have that layer 2 launching, we have new markets launching, we have new team members joining, and also for me personally, I've never been to Brazil, and I'm excited to be visiting Guy and the team during the Web Summit that's happening in Rio in April. So personally, I'm very excited about that, and that is also what's going to make this year great. For me, my social, I'm at Jason KLAU on Twitter. Feel free to drop me a note. Can't emphasize enough, like he said, we crave feedback. And so please don't feel shy to hit us up about issues, or like if there's anything cool that we should be checking out. Someone pinged me about this new ERC 404 craze that's going on. And, it's important that we hear from users. I think we want to see where the market's going and where the community is focused on. So please don't be shy and hit us up.
I will confess, I don't even know what that is. Sadly,
That was me.
very like I feel very embarrassed. Like I should know. I like so, but anyway, well, anyway, Guy and Jason, I really appreciate your time here today. Great interview, great conversation. Excited just about the work you're doing here locally, and best of luck in 2024. And thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time.